What's your action? What's your plan? You're acting like a boy. You're supposed to be a man. Spreading hate and lies.
Hi, I'm John Porter. I'm a professional musician, play in piano bars, and I use an Alesis SR-18 Drum Machine to complement my solo show, and we're going to do a tutorial on that today. Okay, so here is the Alesis SR-18 Drum Machine. This is my third version of the same drum machine in 13 years. So I am on the road anywhere from 7 to 9 months a year, and I will play 6 nights a week typically on those contracts that are on the road. These are in bars. Sometimes it's a private gig, but most of the time it's in bars. And so people are drinking, drinks get spilled, the machine has fallen to the ground many times, things like that. So it is a very roadworthy machine. I will say that that is the case. Let's go ahead and turn it on. I basically want to start you with a couple of things. This is the view that you'll see when you turn on the machine. Now, I have already reset one of the global settings, and I'm going to show you how to do that for yourself as well. The SR-18 factory setting, each pre-programmed pattern, of which there are 2 banks, both a preset bank and a user bank. And you can see right here, this is the preset and user button right here. And this will toggle you between preset and user. And you can see right here on the display where it says preset. If I toggle that, it now says user. Now note also that the actual name of the preset changes in the big screen too, which is helpful. But in case you ever are like, wait, why can't I find Rock 1? It might be because you're in the user bank instead of the preset bank. So there's only those 2 banks, which is helpful. The user bank actually has quite a lot of empty patterns. Around like 85. Okay, so it'll tell you that if it's an empty pattern. We're not going to talk about programming today. We're just going to talk about pre-programmed patterns and how to use them. And I'm also going to show you how I use the machine with a foot switch. So basically, I can start and stop and trigger a fill with my feet. So anytime that you want, you can see the foot cam in this area right down here. Sometimes we'll, of course, toggle and you get to see the whole thing. Ba-pow! Yes, I like to wear high-heeled shoes at work. It actually helps me kind of rock off the back, so I actually feel like it makes it easier. You're also looking at an RC500 loop station, which is this red guy right here, but we are not going to talk about that in today's video. Just want you to see that this is what I'm looking at all the time. So this is my pedal setup for my solo show, and today's video, where we're talking about the SR-18, is going to involve this 2-switch foot switch right here. This is a Boss FS6 2-switch foot switch. So it actually has several options that I want to show you, but let's start with the global pattern change that I want to make here in the actual SR-18. So here in the SR-18, you can change the system setup by using this right here. So I am going to press system setup. Now, you use the page increase decrease to toggle between different settings that you actually have control over, of which there are only about 10. And we're not going to concentrate on these things right now. We're going to go right to the tempo, which is number 9. So the tempo is currently set to global. Now, to toggle between the 2 options, you're going to use the increase decrease buttons right here. Notice that the other option is per pat, which means per pattern. So each of the pre-programmed patterns will be set at its own tempo, and I'll show you. Using this toggle wheel, I can toggle between presets. Note that while I am on per pattern, that the beat per minute, which is this right here, is changing. So each one of these patterns in the factory settings has its own BPM. I personally sometimes have a song or two where I want to change patterns on the fly, live, while I'm doing the song. And I'll show you how to do that. But I don't want it to change the tempo. So again, this is a system setting that you change once from per pat to global. Exit. And now you'll note that when I toggle between patterns, the BPM is staying the same. When you reset this setting, you do not have to go back and reset that setting again. That setting will stay set that way until you change it. Unfortunately, one of the settings that does not have a global turn on and off switch is the particular pieces of your rhythm section themselves. So each of these buttons right here, this says drums, this is percussion, this says bass. The pattern play is actually a different version of things that you can use. Note that, by the way, if I did press pattern play and I don't want to be in it, I can always come back up here and switch back to song instead of pattern. And I'll get back to the actual patterns here. Song is another thing that we're not going to talk about today. So what I need to do is mute the bass. Currently, the bass is playing. Lovely feature, but I don't use that particular feature. So what you want to do is you're going to press and hold the mute while you press the bass. So there, now the bass is gone. If you want it back in, it's very easy to toggle it back in. Okay, but I am going to toggle it off. So now I've muted the bass, and I have to mute the bass every single time I turn on the machine. If I turn the machine off, the bass will automatically start up with the patterns that play. So I do have to remember when I power up the machine to go ahead and mute my bass immediately. Some of the patterns have some different types of percussions, so sometimes I choose to mute my percussions. Just note that when you do that, it will show up here on the main screen. So you see that flashing right there? That's the bass. It says bass at -1 octave. So again, there's a lot of ways that you can change the parameters of these, but we're not going to work on that today. We're just going to work on getting set up and using the foot switch. So it shows you right here that you've muted the bass. If you do mute percussion or drums, so for instance, there's just the percussion with no drums at all. So now if you want, you can mute any piece of the rhythm section that you would like. I mostly keep the drums and percussion both running and leave the bass muted. And that is reflected currently on the screen. So let's do a tune. And I'll also let you see that you can tap tempo here and get a tap tempo. I can also tap tempo using the fill button. So let's see. I'm going to tap tempo here. So you'll note that this tap tempo is responding. You can also do one third way. The third way is to hold tap tempo, and you can then use the wheel. And I actually do use this particular method sometimes when I start a song and I think at the moment that it could be just a couple of beats faster or a couple of beats slower. Then I do that. I just hold the tap tempo. That will work while it's running. So I can be running. I can trigger a fill and still also be messing with tempo. I can also tell it to go ahead and change patterns altogether while still triggering a fill. But if I hold the button down with my foot, it will not go to the next pattern. I have to leave my foot off so that it goes to the next pattern. And it will do that regardless of whether the pattern works for you or not. as long as I do it within time. So this particular patch has 16 beats in its measure. So note that what I'm doing now is I'm using the foot switch to trigger it to fill. And when I do trigger it to fill, you'll see on the screen that it is going to tell you that it's going to go to the next pattern. So right now it's on A, and it's telling you right there that it's going to go to the B pattern. So when I'm using the foot switch and triggering it once and not depressing and holding, it will toggle between A and B pattern. So there I've triggered the fill, and it will switch patterns. If I would like to trigger the fill and keep it on the same pattern, like I just did there, I'm going to trigger it, note that it's triggered, and then I'm going to hold it. As long as I hold it through the fill will happen, but it will stay on the current pattern. Even though the screen reflects that it's ready to go to the A pattern, as long as I'm holding the button down, it will override that command and stay on the same pattern. So one more time, I'm just going to show that I'm going to hold this. It's going to stay on the same pattern while I'm holding. All right, now this next time, let's hold and let it go to the next pattern. If I don't depress the foot switch, I've triggered it for a fill, which means it will toggle between A and B. Now, the reason it's doing that is because I have it set to do that on the pedal itself. So I'm going to actually pick up the pedal and show it to you here. So I'm going to have to turn off the drum machine. This is a note that is important actually to hold on to. The foot switch must be connected before the machine is powered up, so that it already has the connections in place of what will be the start stop and the fill AB toggle. So let me grab the pedal itself. All right, so let's see, I'm going to show you with this camera right here. First, I'd like you to notice that the power button is on. The light is on the power, and that is because the cables are plugged in. So whether the Alesis machine is on or not, notice that the machine is not actually powered on. This pedal is drawing power from its battery. It keeps a 9-volt battery here in the back. It actually does not draw power from the machine at all. It's powered itself by the battery. But again, notice that the power light is on, meaning as long as there are plugs into the back of the foot switch, the power light is on. Notice now the power light is not on and there's nothing plugged into it. So once I plug a cable into the foot switch itself, it will power on, it will suck power. So when I am doing a solo gig and I'm 6 nights a week and I set up my pedals on the floor, I unplug this pedal every single night and plug it in when I get to work the next night. I do not leave it plugged in overnight. It will draw off all of the battery power that's in here. So that's a good habit to get into. Now, I'm going to show you the back of this foot switch. It has several different options here, including polarities and modes. Now, I keep everything to the right. When it's in my hand, I'm pressing each one of those toggle switches to the right. What that does for me means that the modes are set to a click release. So when I click start stop and release it, it stops. When I click start stop and release, it starts, right? Same with the fill toggle. So what I have right now is I have my machine set up so that for me, this A switch is the switch that I use to toggle between A and B pattern with a fill. So clicking and releasing will trigger the fill and send it from the pattern it's on to the next pattern. So if it's on A, it'll go to B. If it's on B, it'll go to A. If you press and hold this through the fill, it will stay on the same pattern, which is what I was just explaining before. So I set up the B switch as my start stop. Now you could flip-flop those if you want. I accidentally have flip-flopped them and my muscle memory is not really good at it, so I often have to double check it when I set up. Okay, so now we have the pedal itself plugged in. I'm gonna make sure that I did the correctly color coordinated cable to each piece up here in the actual machine itself. All the connectors are on the back. It does use a 1/4-inch cable. It has the ability to do stereo as well. If you want, you can use 2 1/4-inch cables. There's MIDI back there. I do actually use MIDI. I am using this loop station. It's a Boss RC500 loop station. That's a different video though. So the way I'm using it, it is chained together with other equipment, the Alesis SR-18 that is. All right, so now we've got it connected. So I'm going to go ahead and put the pedal back down here on the floor. And that is connected to my Alesis drum machine. So now if I start up the drum machine, powering up. Okay, don't forget we have to mute the bass immediately. Okay, so let's do a song. I'm going to set up Rock 1. I do use this one with both the A and the B pattern. So I'll go ahead and use my foot switch right there, just like that, to start stop. You'll notice that when I start stop, the entire measure starts over, which I actually appreciate. I sometimes use that in the show when I have a song that has a alternate time signature. All right, so now I'm gonna fill, and I'm doing that with my foot. Let's actually show it this way, why not? Note that I'm pressing and holding to keep the same pattern. Now here you go again, you say you want your freedom. Now who am I to keep you down? Pressing and filling. It's only right that you should play the way you feel it. Listen carefully to the sound of your loneliness, like a heartbeat drives you mad. In the stillness of remembering what you had on me, what you lost, what you had, and what you lost. Foot is off. Thunder only happens when it's raining. The players only love you when they're playing. Ooh, they say women, they will come and they will go. When the rain washes you clean, you'll know. So note that when I hit it right on the beat there at the end, I had, let's see, I was actually starting on B pattern. So we're running. I'm going to trigger the fill. Oh, well, you will know. And since I actually hit the start stop at the exact same moment that we went into the second pattern, it acted as a finish. As long as I hit it right on the beat, then it works perfectly. Okay, so let's do a song. I've got my pattern chosen. I did my tap tempo. Note that we can do the scroll tempo. Make sure that we dial it in perfectly. And I'm gonna hit my start stop. What's your deal? What's your action? What's your plan? Notice that I went ahead and went to the fill to go to the B pattern. a man, spreading hate and lies wherever you go. I don't need to listen to you. I know exactly what I want to do. I just want to go out and have some fun. I don't need to listen to you. Won't be the one to let you play me for a fool. Well, I'll do what I want because I can. Current pulling. Now, if you see that I did some special stuff right there, what happened was the song actually has a slightly different time signature. So, do what I want because I can, which means that I'm not going to end properly on the measures. So what I need to do is quick get back to the 1. So what I did was literally a quick back to the 1. If you'll notice, because I can. What I'm going to do is trigger the stop start twice, very fast. Very fast and in rhythm on the beat. So for the way I use it for this song, what I really want to do is make sure that I'm going to end up in the B pattern for the verse. So since I had to do my quick start stop to get to 1, this particular pattern happens to be that when you trigger to go to the B pattern, it basically goes to the B pattern. Now that's not all of the patterns, but this particular one does. And it stays on the B pattern until we trigger again to A pattern. Note that that is the case, which is interesting. So let's say I'm right here, and I'm going to do my start stop. And what I did, if you see it really quickly there on the left side, is I'm doing the stop, start, and then almost immediately clicking the fill button so that I'm getting all 3 of the things that I need. A current pulling water down a river. What you take can make a strong girl shiver. Press and hold to stay on this pattern. She will never let it. Notice that I triggered it really fast there, but we're going to go to the next pattern. Don't need to listen to you. As your muscle memory develops, you'll be able to feel even under the pedal and notice very quickly peripherally that you've triggered it because the main screen changes, as you can see. Don't let you play me for a fool, and I'll do what I want because I can. Here comes the quick stop start and shift. At least I know you can't hurt me. Did you see how quick that was? Where we went from the... At least I know you can't hurt me when I'm all alone. You can try and bring me down over the telephone. Hold through. Ain't got time for you. Can't hear you anymore. One more hold through. This time. Now we're going to go to the B. I mean the A. But I know, well, I don't need to listen to you. I know exactly what I want to do. I just want to go out and have some fun. I don't need to listen to you. All right. We're going to see if we can actually get it right on the ending. So note that I'm on the right tempo in the measures. So what I want to do is do the ending here. And I do what I want, 'cause I can. So note that on the ending, it's just the ending. Even though I wasn't on the measures, because it's got a slightly different time signature, even though I wasn't on beat 16, I'm still able to just give it a stop right on the ending. So note also that when you're watching my face, that it's still, I can actually add a little extra flair, I feel like, from a visual perspective. because I'm using the foot switch. So that is partly why I like being able to have the foot switch with the Alesis. Now that doesn't mean that I don't use my hands. Sometimes I do. Actually, usually keep it right here on the piano. But for today's purposes, I wanted to make sure that everybody could see it properly. So, like I said, I do still use the hand controls. Often, let's say I'm feeling like today this song just feels too fast. Even though this is the tempo that I know I have it. I have a list where I have all my tempos. Let's just say today I don't feel like it feels right. So I can use my finger to depress the tap tempo and toggle. Note, be careful, because if you start to tap tempo, it will believe you. See what I'm saying? So if I'm going to use the toggle, I have to be very careful and use it singularly, meaning press and hold once and use the toggle. Otherwise, this toggle wheel, notice, is going to change patterns. That's a whole different thing to do. But because I changed global tempo up front, as we noted before, I won't change beat. Excuse me, I won't change beats. I won't change beats per minute. So that should actually get you started using an Alesis SR-18 Drum Machine with a Boss 2-switch foot switch. Good luck and have fun.